Today is September 11th, 2023. My name is Rob Carr of Kalamazoo Right to Life, and this is Pro-Life Week. Well, September 11th is a tragically memorable day in American history. The World Trade Center, the Pentagon, Shanksville, planes crashing, thousands of lives killed. It forever changed how Americans looked at the world, really, international terrorism and things like that. But today, I do want to talk about some other topics. The first one is good news, really good news. In the first 4 months of 2023, according to the Texas Department of Vital Statistics or whatever, but for the first 4 months, only 17 abortions have been performed in that large state. 17. That's amazing. And they've calculated that the reason for the difference, the reason is because of that heartbeat bill that was enacted about 2 years ago and has been very successful. At least 10,000 lives have been saved as a result of the Texas heartbeat law. So that's good news, very good news coming out of the Lone Star State. Second is, I saw on a pro-life website today an article written by David Osteen, who is the executive director of the National Right to Life Committee. And his article is entitled, "Here's How Republicans Need to Talk About Abortion to Win Elections," unquote. Well, he commends the fact that all the pro-life candidates running for president, at least from the first debate, are pro-life. Donald Trump is pro-life, so that's a good sign. We're all pro-life. And there are varying degrees. Some perhaps are more pro-life than others, perhaps marginally. But in general, they're pro-life. But there was a question that was asked, or the question is, how can these candidates win over people who are in the middle on the issue? People who favor restrictions or some limitations on abortion, but don't actually want to outlaw it. They want to keep abortion as an option in certain circumstances. So then he talked about the problem that Republicans have over the issue of, do the Republicans want to pass a national abortion ban? And the word ban, that it's a limitation, that it raises red flags for some pro-abortion people, because is that ban at 15 weeks? Is it at 10 weeks? Is it at 6 weeks? Is it at conception? Where does the GOP want to enact an abortion ban? So the problem with a 15-week ban, and that actually has been suggested by several members of the Republican minority in the Senate, a 15-week national abortion ban would be meaningless, because 95% of all abortions are performed before the 15th week. So it's a meaningless piece of legislation. Well, first of all, it would never be enacted or signed by Joe Biden, because he favors abortions all up into the third trimester. So that would never go anywhere. And the Democrats would filibuster it, even if the Republicans were to get some kind of an edge on the piece of legislation. But a 15-week ban is truly a meaningless gesture, because, like I said, only 5%, it would only protect and save 5% of all unborn babies. That has absolutely no teeth. So the article continues by talking about a survey that was conducted, and they ask a question: would you support or oppose abortion only under these 4 circumstances? Number 1, when necessary to save the life of the mother. 2, when a medical emergency poses a serious risk or an irreversible harm to the mother, 3 in cases of rape, or 4 in cases of incest. Well, the result was 72% of respondents would support an abortion ban, restriction, except for those 4 hard cases. Life of the mother, basically the irreversible harm to the mother, rape, and incest. 72% would support that. But then they asked the same question with different wording. And this time they asked the question, would you support prohibiting abortion except for those 4 circumstances I mentioned? This time, that 72% support fell to 57.5%, like a 14% drop. And why was that? Why did that drop occur? And that's because we changed the wording of the question. Well, we've known for a long time, we've known for decades, that you can tailor a questionnaire on abortion, and you can get the answer you want based on how you word the question. And here, by introducing the word prohibit, you're prohibiting abortion. You've created a negative mindset for these respondents to this survey, and it skewed the results. It changed the results. So whenever you're talking about polls and statistics, it all depends how the question is worded, how it's phrased, and you'll get a different answer based on the wording of the question. And so if you use the word ban, as in national abortion ban, that may be very unpopular with independent voters next year, because, like I said, they may favor restrictions, a lot of restrictions, but they don't want to outlaw abortion entirely. And a ban makes it sound like it's a ban from conception. Okay, so here are my thoughts. I've kind of gotten past the David Osteen op-ed. Why are the Republicans are always on defense when it comes to the issue of abortion? The national media, the Democratic Party, they're always trying to get them to answer, where would you support an abortion ban? Do you support a heartbeat bill? Do you support, would you ban abortions at the moment of conception? They're always trying to force the Republican candidate into giving an answer. I think they need to give a clear answer, but before that, the Republican office holder, politician, what have you, he or she needs to have thought this through to come up with a cogent answer that will, it's never going to satisfy the Democrats or the mainstream media, because they're in bed together in the pro-abortion movement. But I think the Republican candidate still needs to give an answer of what he or she believes in and where they stand on the issue. I really do. But to turn that around, we need to put the Democrats on defense. If the mainstream media thinks that we are too extreme because we support saving babies in the first trimester, or we support saving babies, at 6 weeks when the fetal heartbeat is detected, or if we were too extreme at wanting to save babies from the moment of conception, if that's too extreme, then why doesn't the national media ever ask the other side, the pro-abortion Democrats, where do you draw the line on favoring abortion? If we're too extreme, how come they're not too extreme because they favor abortion at viability or beyond viability? Do you support abortion at 24 weeks or 26 weeks or 28 weeks? Do you favor abortion in the third trimester? At what point, they never asked this question, at what point do you believe an unborn baby deserves the right to live? At what point? They need to ask these Democrats, at what point? You see an ultrasound. There's a baby there. There's a head, there are arms, there's a trunk. At what point in a woman's pregnancy do you support restricting abortion? You've got to ask that question. You've got to ask that question of these Democrats because, they make it all very vague. Well, I support a woman's choice. A woman should have that right. They should have that choice. You shouldn't deny a woman the right to have an abortion. Pin them down. At what point? 26 weeks, 24 weeks, 16 weeks, 12 weeks, 9 months. Where do they draw the line on assigning personhood, life to that unborn baby? Okay. Turn the topic here. Last week we found out that the Democrats in Lansing have introduced a reproductive health act that would repeal every pro-life law we have, every single one. Parental consent, state funding for abortions, partial birth abortion, informed consent, clinic licensing, right down the line. And you need to write or call or send an email to your state representative or your state senator. I don't care if they're Democrats who are co-sponsors. They need to hear from you that this legislation is way too extreme. Michigan voters, as the national polls have indicated, most Americans favor parental consent. Most Americans oppose partial birth abortion. Most Americans support clinic licensing. Most Americans favor health and standard restrictions and licensing restrictions. They want to make sure that abortion clinics are inspected once every 2 years, as opposed to once every 20 years or once every 15 years. We should be expecting that clinics are clean and safe. We need to nail down these pro-abortion legislators who are pushing this, because I think I've mentioned this before. The expression, when I feel the heat, I see the light. And if we can convince some of these moderate Democrats that they will lose re-election in 2024 unless they oppose this bill, well, they might reconsider. Not every Democrat bleeds pro-abortion. They're not all ideologues like Gretchen Whitmer is. They're not. Most of them are. I agree. Most of them are. But there may be a few who are willing to accept some limitations on the right to abortion. And we need to find these people and convince them, pressure them to vote no on the Reproductive Health Act. Last item before I go, November 8th, Lansing, Michigan. All roads lead to Lansing for the March for Life. Kalamazoo Right to Life has reserved 4 buses for you. So there's plenty of room to ride the bus. There'll be a little fee, like $15 fee or $10 for a student. But, that pays for the cost of the vehicle. Bring your snack lunch, bring a bottle of water. We'll eat it on the ride home. The rally starts at 11 with speeches. The march begins at noon for an hour. We'd be leaving about 1:30, 2 o'clock. Come back to Kalamazoo about 3:30. March for Life. Kalamazoo Right to Life. We have you covered for this rally. I'll give more information as we get closer. Consider this. If you know anybody at your church who is strongly pro-life, talk to them. Set aside, get names collected. I'll get those names, and we can save places for you for the March for Life. With that, November 8th, March for Life. With that, I'll let you go, and I'll see you next time.